I spoke to the SBI chairperson. Let's hear out to her what she had to say on the same. So the first thing that I asked her was on the asset quality itself, that how the overall slippages and restructuring, the pace has come down. So what is the kind of momentum that she sees going ahead?
Going forward, we are seeing the stresses coming down, but whether this will sustain will depend very much on whether the economy performs and whether we see, better sort of traction there. So to that extent, at this point of time, at least we are seeing stresses coming down over a period of time.
Ma'am, in the press conference, you actually spoke about the agri NPAs worth about 1200 crore rupees, and you also mentioned that how Andhra and Telangana loan waivers are spoiling the credit culture. Is that likely to weigh down on the agri recoveries as well? Is there a big threat to that?
See, from the agri segment, we are doing everything we can to try and ensure that the recovery happens. In Andhra and Telangana also, actually, there is a lot of agricultural activity. And I believe that, if nothing comes out in the next 2 months or so, we will be looking at recovery, because these farmers are good farmers and they will have to continue to do whatever they do, that is, to be a part of the agricultural activity of the state. So to that extent, going forward, immediately I cannot predict what will happen. But I think we are also trying to tell the farmers that it is necessary for them to be able to repay so that they can access further borrowings and therefore, take forward whatever activities they do. So let us see how it works out in the next quarter. I am at this point of time optimistic that the recoveries will still take place.
One more question about the asset quality. One asset which has come under pressure for all the banks, that is Bhushan Steel. So I asked Ms. Arundhati Bhattacharya, what are the measures that all the bankers together are taking to make sure that this asset doesn't slip?
See, at this point of time, we have called a consortium meeting and the bankers will meet there and take some decisions as to how to take this forward. Because really speaking, in this kind of a situation, it is very difficult to say what exactly will happen. But it's a very large kind of an exposure for the banking sector. Very many banks are there, private as well as public. All banks are there. It is also an asset that at this point of time is working well. And therefore, it is an asset that needs to be protected so that the investment that we all have also gets protected. So we will take whatever steps is required in order to do so.
Credit growth which has been muted for the system. So I asked the top lender in the Indian banking industry, is there a dire need at this point in time to lend and hence an immense competition amongst bankers to increase their credit growth to make it much more stronger? Because even for SBI, it was just about 13% in Q1.
No, see, we have done a very controlled growth. There has been no aggressive lending at all. And all that we have done is we have concentrated more on the retail space and maybe in some bits on the large corporate space. But the large corporate would definitely be A-rated and above. So we have not gone about aggressively lending to anybody, and that shows up because our mid-corporate as well as our SME loans, the SME loans actually have decreased YOY and the mid-corporate has grown only very little. So to that extent, there has been no aggressive competition for assets. We are content to grow safely at this point of time. And I think going forward too, that will be what we will continue to do.
The recent RBI norms for asset sales of NPAs, for NPA sale to ARCs, I asked that question from Ms. Bhattacharya. Does she see the entire process slowing down from here on?
Actually, it won't make it a tougher process, but obviously the number of ARCs who would be able to dole out this kind of money or give out this kind of money, that may come down. So it depends upon the strength of the ARCs, whether they will be able to source sufficient funds in order to take up these exposures. Also, what may happen is they may start offering less because they are offering more upfront. So in that case also we have to see whether they meet our reserve requirements, because we have certain reserve price requirements. Now if that is not met, obviously the sales will not happen. So this is again something that is unfolding. I cannot give you anything in particular right at this point of time. But we will see how it goes in this quarter. That will determine, or that will tell us how it will go in the future.
On Thursday evening, Reserve Bank of India again came out with some guidelines for the project loans. So I asked her, does that come in as a big positive, or as just, or some of the analysts pointed out that it's just positive at the margin and it's not going to make much of a difference in the immediate term. So I asked Ms. Arundhati Bhattacharya what kind of implications does she sees out of these guidelines.
It is a big positive, because it enables companies that have already established CODs as well as got a cash flow for them to reprice their loans and also get it, lengthened if that is permissible. And to that extent, the stresses will come down, and therefore it is a big positive for the infra sector.
So that was Ms. Arundhati Bhattacharya. Last time when I spoke to her, she was sounding much more confident how some of the small sectors as well are looking up, like textiles, steel, etc. This time she said, let's wait and watch how the economy picks up.